Good afternoon. My name's Wendy Randall. I'm one of the consultant midwives at the John Radcliffe Hospital, and I'm here today in one of the Spires rooms to answer any questions or things that you may have. I have had a couple of people pose questions via this Facebook page, so I just wanted to answer those questions. And then obviously any questions you may have round about it. So I think scans comes up quite a lot. Someone has posted that their relative has been informed that a partner can come to their 20-week scan with them, and so that has led people to think that there is a change in the provision of what we're doing in terms of visiting. So I just wanted to be really clear that we are not making any changes at present. Partners still won't be allowed to come into the scan appointment with women. Our ultrasound department is working very, very hard with very short numbers of staff to make sure that we can do the maximum amount of screening during pregnancy, and we need to make sure that we keep them safe and at work. So at present, partners can't come from scan. What the question raised via Facebook has helped us to realise is that actually the leaflet that goes out with our scan letter is not the most up-to-date leaflet. We have got a new scan leaflet which obviously embraces the changes that have happened in terms of COVID. So please look at the content of the letter, and that then makes it nice and clear, hopefully, that partners still cannot come up to the hospital. We had put in a plea on the Facebook site over the last couple of weeks saying, please can people, we appreciate it's really frustrating for you not to have partners able to come to appointments and things with you, but please can you be respectful of this and not be aggressive towards our staff. We are putting these things in place to keep everyone as safe as possible, so we hope you understand that, and please, our staff would like to do their jobs without the aggression that goes with it. So really grateful for you to respect our staff, please. So in terms of the scan department, then there are no changes, and for the foreseeable future, partners still can't join you for the scan. We are looking to see what we can do in terms of being able to write down the sex of the baby, so that you can share that with your partner and discover that together after the appointment. We haven't quite sorted out that because, as you appreciate, it's not the main part of the scan. The scan is absolutely about screening, but we just have to sort out the best way to share that information with you. So watch this space. There will be some changes hopefully from that regard, but please note that we don't get it 100% right. So even if you do get that written down, it will probably say something like it's probably a girl and probably a boy, because obviously we can't be held to account if we got it wrong. So that's just the bit about scans. I can see I've had some questions, so I'm just going to have a little look at those. So Roxana, you have asked, are partners allowed during the induction? So Roxana, we started at the beginning of May a new induction process, which meant that it's a two-pronged induction. So you come in the day before your induction and you attend on your own. Excuse me. And you're in for about an hour, sometimes a little bit shorter, sometimes a little bit longer. And then if you're suitable to go home, you can go home. If it is required that you stay in hospital, I'm afraid that your partner cannot stay in the ward with you, and they will join you at the point when you progress to the next stage of the induction, when you're on delivery suite, or if you're fortunate enough to be able to go up to the Spires, then they'll attend then. So the first bit of the induction is when you come in and you have something called a catheter put in that mechanically stretches your cervix. If that's not possible because the cervix is already quite open, we do a stretch and sweep to try to encourage labour before the next step of the induction, which is the following day. Our lovely induction team are going to do a session on this Facebook forum for you on the 15th of July. It is early in the morning. We've had to plan it at 7:30 in the morning, and I appreciate a lot of you probably aren't awake at that time, but that is so that it doesn't then interfere with the inductions that are happening that day and delay them. So you will meet Denise and Di, who are predominantly the main midwives in the induction suite, and they will answer questions, which I think Maternity Voices are encouraging you to post your questions before to make sure that we can answer them. So Claudia, you have said, please could you let me know if having a planned induction, if you have to self-isolate as a household for 7 days prior, thank you. So Claudia, what we're asking you to do in terms of self-isolation is we're encouraging you to minimise your contact and potential exposure to coronavirus, because hairdressers have opened up, restaurants, pubs and things have opened up. We'd ask you not to go to those areas. We'd ask you not to you know, where possible, not to do the supermarket shopping. But otherwise, if your partner is a key worker and can't work from home, it's still really important for them to go to work, because they will be using the right level of PPE to keep them protected. So we would advise you to do that, but generally it's about just reducing your exposure to the virus 7 days before. So Delena, you had a vitamin B12 injection, also a tablet. Can I keep taking tablets, or injections enough? Hold on, so I see the rest of your post. It's not letting me see it. Delena, all I could say is I can't see the rest of your post for some reason. It's not opening on the iPad. Wait a minute, because you have 4 for next week. I think you have to seek the advice of the obstetrician or your medical consultant who's prescribed it, and go with what they suggest, because they will know you and your medical history more in depth than I will know just now. So it's much better to ask them. So I'm sorry I can't help with that one. Claire, you said at what stage is your partner allowed to be with you when you go into labour? So Claire, we recommend that the majority of women start their labour at home, where obviously your partner can be in touch with you. Home is a much better place to be until labour establishes, because you have more distractions. You can eat and drink as you want, you can rest as you want, you can watch television, listen to music, whatever you want to do. At the point where we feel that you're in established labour and you're encouraged to come into delivery suite or the Spires or one of our freestanding birth centres, or at home, at the point that you have a midwife and you're diagnosed to be in labour, is the point that your partner stays with you. So part of our screening is to try and get that right, so that it's at the right time and your partner doesn't have to wait, because generally somebody looks like they're getting ready to push the baby out. Generally we ask partners just to wait in the car until we've had a chance to chat with you and assess what's happening. But I think maternity assessment are trying to get that right, if that's where you're going into, and then obviously depending on the midwifery led units that you might go to there. So Delena, you've asked, is it possible for a baby to be born at 36 weeks without needing an incubator? Yes, every baby is different. Some babies are born at 38 weeks and need an incubator, and some babies are born at 34 weeks and don't. It very much depends on the baby, how the baby's coping in terms of managing gas exchange, managing with breathing to keep its oxygen levels at an acceptable level, and also if they're a bit smaller, sometimes they need a little bit of help with heat and with feeding. So it really just depends what happens, but it doesn't necessarily mean if baby's born at 36 weeks that it needs to go to the neonatal unit. We will assess each baby when they're born, because ultimately we want babies to remain with mums and not to have that separation. So we hope that, you know, we'll do the assessment and we'll only take baby to the neonatal unit if we feel baby needs a bit of extra support. So Sophie, you've asked, what about birthing partners? You're due in October and you need your mum there for support, but the dad needs to be there too. So Sophie, this is a really common concern with people. A lot of people want to have two people present at the birth. And I'm really sorry, but you know, at present we aren't able to support people having two partners present. And so at this time, if the rules don't change, then we'd anticipate it would be the same. Quite often how people are managing that is they're having their mum available on FaceTime, because the other thing that's not possible is for them to swap in and out. So you can't have your mum in for a bit and she goes away and then your partner comes in. It is just one partner for the whole extent of your time in the hospital, or wherever you have your baby. The same rules apply. So I'm really sorry about that. I know it's causing people an added level of anxiety, but you know, a lot of people are doing it with social media, FaceTime, WhatsApp, whatever, so that their mums are still involved with what's happening. And of course you can choose your mum or your partner depending on who's going to be the best support for you in labour. So Imi, you said on the postnatal ward, is it side rooms or ward with bays? So Imi, we're fortunate to have on level 7 we have a series of single side rooms. So basically any woman who just requires what we call standard postnatal care, they just need to stay for feeding support just overnight, and they haven't been to the theatre as part of giving birth or after the birth of their baby. Those women come up to level 7 where there are side rooms which all have ensuite bathrooms, but those wards are mainly staffed by maternity support workers. There is a midwife there as well, but a lot of the care is by the maternity support workers, who are an amazing bunch of women at the minute. We don't have any male ones. If you have to stay in a little bit longer, or your baby or you need some additional support, if you've been to theatre, then you go to level 5, and that is 4-bedded bays. You know, we do manage social distancing within that, and of course visitors are restricted, so you know, the exposure on the ward is much less. So Cheryl, you said, has the caesarean section talk been rescheduled yet? I'm sorry, Cheryl, it hasn't. Finola, I think Finola's on leave. She was on leave at the same time as I was last week. I will touch base with Finola, who's going to do the talk, and we'll get that planned for this week, hopefully, if not next week. So I'll try to get that done as soon as possible. There's a few talks that we've got outstanding. We've also got a home birth talk that the Cotswold Maternity Unit staff are going to do as well. So we're trying to plan to keep the education flowing. Laura, you'd said, are fans back in the birthing room? The summer's hotting up. Laura, I'm terribly sorry, but they're not. We're not allowed to have the fans. I have to say the temperature is so much better this week. I was off last week, but it's certainly better than the week before that. But sadly, no fans yet. So Naomi, I'm sorry. You're still waiting to hear from the VBAC team. How long will it take to hear back from them? And also, if you choose an elective caesarean, will your partner be allowed in for the whole thing? So Naomi, if you haven't received your appointment for the birth after caesarean clinic, if that's what you mean, those clinics run on a Friday. If you could ask your midwife to re-refer you in case there's been a problem and the referral has gone missing. It doesn't normally happen, but she will be able to see on your electronic patient record if the appointment's been made. and if not, she can follow up on that. In terms of your partner being with you, the same thing applies to a caesarean section as in labour. Your partner can come in with you for the time of the caesarean section and wait with you for an hour or two afterwards, and then they will be encouraged to go home. And then they can't, if you go home from hospital the following day, they then arrive the following day and meet you at the door to take you home. So, Michelina, hi Wendy, if Spires isn't very busy, the time of labour, you're nearly 39 weeks, will you be able to choose your delivery room? I can't see all of that message. Yes, so Michelina, if you came in today, all 3 rooms are available. Wytham, which is the big room with the bigger pool. Knowles, which is the room that has no windows but has the lovely purple magical lights. And Burcott is the one that I'm in just now. So if you wanted this room, if somebody came in now and wanted this room, then I'd be asked to leave and we'd go and find another room instead. But no, absolutely, we try to be as flexible as we can. And if, when you phone up and they're saying come into the Spires, if you've got a particular room that you have in mind, you could say, I hope to be able to use Knowles, or I hope to be able to use Burcott, so that if they're preparing the pool for you coming in, they can fill the right pool. If not, if we fill a different pool and you want a different room, it just takes a little bit longer, but that's okay. So, Caris, you're asking about, you're asking about the Mirena coil and whether you can have it inserted immediately after the birth. We are doing postnatal contraception, and it is something that I think we have available. We certainly know that we've got contraception available in the wards. If you can write in your birth plan that that's something that you would like to have, then we can do what we can where possible. Marissa, you're 37 weeks and since last week you've been feeling sick and dizzy and tired. Been to the midwife and all is okay with you and the baby. Marissa, I wonder if you suffered from the same symptoms at the beginning of your pregnancy, because it's quite common for, if you had those symptoms at the beginning of the pregnancy, for it to come back in the 3rd trimester. It can just be because it's been very hot, and perhaps you need to make sure that you're drinking more frequently, drink plenty of water, keep yourself hydrated. You're getting bigger and heavier, and that all has an impact. Again, just try to rest, and it's that balance between rest and exercise, eating little and often, because your stomach doesn't have the capacity. It's got all the weight of the baby and everything as well on it, so it doesn't have the capacity for bigger meals. So small amounts, little and often, and like I said, to keep hydrated, that should be better. Okay, so Christina, you have high myopia in both eyes. And so sorry, this iPad is not very touch sensitive. It's not letting me see the rest of it. Oh, here we go. And you've had an eye check which confirmed that your eyesight has worsened recently. You're concerned about this and you'd like to know if this is likely to be temporary. You've decided against changing your glasses. And you're worrying about problems with your retina in labour, and our experience of cases. So I think, with anything, Christine, it's always better talking to the professional that's in charge of a condition. So it would be worth talking to your optician about it, about whether this is associated with the pregnancy, whether it's likely to get worse or better. In terms of retinal detachment, the risk of that happening is incredibly low, and even people who have had experience of that before, it's not a risk that is recurrent in terms of the labour and birth. So like I said, I would talk to your optician about it. It's always better. I know there's been a lot of things happening and people are concerned about COVID and going for checkups, but it is really much better to go to the professional who has that specialty. So eyes is definitely your optician, will be the best person to see about that. So Amber, how do you know how long you should stay at home for before going to hospital when labour starts? And again, my touch screen is not behaving to see the rest of it. I'll keep pressing and hope that it comes. In terms of when's the right time to come into hospital, we tend to say if it's your first baby and you're contracting regularly every 3 minutes, and regular is the important thing. If they come very close together, your contractions, one stronger than the other, one lasts longer than the other, then you know, that irregularity is your body getting used to labour and birth, whereas then when it's your second and subsequent baby, we say when you're contracting every 5 minutes and they're regular is about the right time to let us know. But if you have any concerns, we're at the end of the phone and we're happy to answer them. We'd like to know if your waters break, if you have, if you've got concerns about baby's movements, any of those things. And we will try to help you with the best time of when to come into hospital or not. But being your first baby, very few people labour very quickly with your first baby, and being an hour away from the hospital is okay. I don't know whether it's suitable, and I don't know anything about your history, whether it's suitable to, you know, to consider going to maybe one of our midwifery-led units if you're closer to one of them to begin with. And they can assess you to see how you're doing and work out the best time for you to come into hospital from there. That may be something you want to talk to your midwife about. Obviously, if you've got a more high-risk pregnancy, it is actually better for you to be up at the John Radcliffe. But, you know, explore that with your midwife. That's what she's there for. Especially the 36-week appointment is your time to really go through these things about birth with him, and she can advise. Oh, right, sorry. Sophie, you had a short 1 hour 40-minute labour with your son and you're due in December. You're worried the dad will miss the birth if it's even faster and he can't come in at first. How do you judge progress of a woman's labour? With my son, I got straight in the pool and gave birth, so concerned I'd have to have a vaginal examination and it would be too late for him to make it to the ward. So that does sound like a very quick labour, Sophie, and I would say to you in terms of it may be worth considering, because labour and births can get a bit quicker. It may be worth planning to have your baby at home or in one of our midwifery-led units. From that perspective, assessing labour is not all about a vaginal examination. It's bizarre, but we can tell by looking at somebody, by the way that they're managing to breathe or not breathe, by the way they're coping, by how we feel the strength of the contractions. And I think if you said to them, you know, I previously had, we call it a precipitate labour. So if you tell them on the phone that you had a precipitate labour, then, you know, then it would be understandable for your partner to come in with them, with you, because you'd had a much quicker experience. But I would talk to your midwife about perhaps, you know, birthing out of the hospital, birthing one of our midwifery-led units or at home would be the better option for you. To make sure that obviously we can give you some care this time. Amber, you're asking what the visiting regulations are at the moment once you've had a baby. So Amber, what we're trying to do is encourage most women to go home either the day that they've had their baby or the day after they have their baby. So imagine that you had your baby today. Then your partner would be with you while you had your baby and an hour or so afterwards before they go home. And then because if you went home that day, then you could go home together. If you didn't and you decided to stay till tomorrow, then there wouldn't be any visiting for you because your partner would come up to pick you up and you'd go home from the hospital tomorrow. If, however, you needed to stay in for another day, then your partner is allowed to come up to the hospital. So if you gave birth today, which is Monday, and you were staying in hospital till Wednesday, your partner could come back and visit you tomorrow on the Tuesday for 1 hour. And it is at a designated time. So what we've given people slots from the ward that partners can come and visit just for that 1 hour, and that's to try and minimise the amount of contact with other people, and thus reduce the risk of the spread of infection. And obviously, if you had to stay in for a week, which hopefully you wouldn't, it would just be that same partner that could come and visit. You can't change the partners. And again, they would get a designated hour. So visiting is only Monday to Friday, because we don't have the staffing about on the Saturday to be able to help sort out the appointment times and things like that. So it's just Monday to Friday, and it's each day that you're not going home that one partner can come for an hour. So I hope that makes sense. Well, thank you for Kelly for sharing your helpful hints to keep Laura cool. Cindy, you've asked how long do we stay usually after the birth in hospital. So some women go home within a few hours of giving birth to their baby. Some people wait 6 hours, some people wait until the following day, but the majority of people tend to go home within 24 hours of having their baby. If you have any complications or the baby needs any special observations or things, then you may stay in a little bit longer. But generally we say to people, pack for one night, and if you need more things, then somebody can bring stuff up to the hospital for you. So Debbie, you've had your scan today. I really need to get a better iPad that has a better touch screen. You went for your 36-week growth scan today, and baby's estimated at £7.10. And bump down, I'm not sure what you mean. Is it bottom down, as in your baby is breech? Or your right hip not completely down with head, so baby is breech. This is your 6th baby, and you feel that this baby is quite big for you. So Debbie, with it being your 6th baby, there's more space, so babies can move around and turn around quite a lot. One of the things hopefully they've arranged is for you to come to our breech clinic probably next Monday to see what position baby's in then, and it may be that they can help turn the baby round to be head down. I appreciate you're concerned about the size of your baby, but as we keep saying in the conversations we have about scan, the 3rd trimester scan is really quite inaccurate for the weight of your baby. It tends to overestimate big babies, and so we advise people not to be concerned. Unless you have diabetes, you grow the right size of baby for you, and although this may be bigger than some of your other babies, we would want to reassure you that that generally everything is okay. It's only when you have diabetes that a baby can grow much bigger than expected because of the extra circulating blood sugar. But like I said, this is your 6th baby. The baby's got plenty of time to move around, and you'll probably find the baby's head down by next week. But if not, our fantastic breech team will talk to you. They'll scan again to see what's happening and advise you from there. Okay, so Francesca, this is your 1st baby and you just went for your 28-week appointment. You got a text from the GP about something, but I can't, my touch screen is not working. I think the amount of times I press it's not going to help it. I'll hope that this comes back if I scroll up. Oh, how disappointing with technology. Oh, there we go. You got a text from your GP about a prescription for ferrous sulfate, but no explanation. I presume this is for anemia, but it's something I should be worried about, and will it affect your birth choices? No, Francesca, a lot of women end up having lower blood levels, iron blood levels when they're pregnant, and most of the time it's not a problem. We recommend you making some changes to your diet, avoiding tea and coffee with meals, because caffeine affects your ability to absorb vitamin C. So having your iron tablets with a glass of fresh orange juice at breakfast time, eating things like bran flakes, all quite high in iron, eating spinach, oily fish, things that can help make a difference to your iron levels. But you know, as long as we can keep your iron levels up above 90, it shouldn't affect your birth choices. But yes, ferrous sulfate is for anemia. Holly, so you've said, with elective caesarean sections, are dads still allowed to come in and wait with you until you go down to theatre? Or are they only allowed? I can't see the rest of this, but I'm going to presume what you're talking about. What happens, Holly, when you come in for your caesarean is you're admitted into a bay, and your partner will be with you at that time. So yes, they are waiting with you. When you go into theatre for your anaesthetic, they wait some more until your anaesthetic is in, and then they join you in theatre. Like I said, you come back into the same bay to recover afterwards, and then when you go to the ward, they go home. I'm afraid I can't see the rest of the message. So if there was anything else, Holly, if I haven't answered your question, please can you let me know. So Christina, you're saying that your optician couldn't provide advice and your GP didn't feel a referral to see an ophthalmologist. I'm not sure what your GP said because my touch screen's not working. Oh, GP said she would email an obstetrician at the JR to ask about retinal detachment. Thank you. Like I said, the risk of retinal detachment, as far as I'm aware, is very, very low. I'm sorry that the optician couldn't provide you with the advice you needed. I'm not sure what the obstetrician will be able to add, but at least your GP has contacted them. So Alice, you're 34 weeks pregnant and you've found your midwife appointments have been very rushed since COVID. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. And you haven't had something, hoping I'll get to see it. I'm very sorry appointments are rushed. You know, it shouldn't be rushed. I suppose time may be affected by them needing to clean down in between women that they're seeing, to make sure that they wipe down all the surfaces, and changing obviously their apron and masks and gloves, so that may have affected some time. We're hoping to get a little bit back more to normality and get quicker as we're doing things now, because we've been in this state now for a few months. Alice, I'm really struggling to see the set. Oh, wait a minute, it's come now. I might finally worked out how to use this iPad. You haven't had a chance to talk through your birth options in detail. You're wondering about a caesarean section. You've had a low risk pregnancy, however you're concerned about a health condition and the impact this could have on vaginal birth. I think, you know, Alice, you need to voice those to the midwife, and if you haven't had a chance to talk to them at the appointments, then it's really important that you contact them and tell them what you've just told me, because they need to give you that time to talk to you. And it doesn't always have to be face to face, but please do contact your midwife, and she will see whether she needs to help with some additional planning with you. Generally, if women have a low risk pregnancy, it's much better for them to have a vaginal birth than a planned caesarean section. But obviously, I don't know about your health condition and what you're concerned about. So please phone your midwife, tell your midwife about it, and then she'll work out whether she needs to give you some additional help or refer you on to someone else. Lisa, you're saying you're only halfway through your pregnancy. Do I think these restrictions will be in place in November? Lisa, I desperately hope not. I would like to see some sense of normality coming back. I equally am not enjoying some of the changes that have happened and having to wear masks all the time, apart from obviously when I'm talking to you. But we just don't know what's going to happen. I mean, I think the pictures at the weekend of people going mad in pubs and restaurants and things with no evidence of social distancing. It'll be interesting to see what that does and whether we're going to get the peak again. But we just have to wait and see. And that's why we're not making any changes in maternity, because as the population go out and mix with more and more people without social distancing, which is what people are doing, we don't want to increase the potential for infection and for it to affect us for much longer in maternity. Christina, you've asked, are there any changes to the checks that are done on the baby? No, we still do the same amount of screening as before, and we do the newborn check and things. So no, we're still continuing in the same way. I thought that was going to work. Lauren, you've been advised you have an issue with one of your arteries going into the placenta. You had it in a previous pregnancy. I can't see the rest of your question. Oh, I've completely lost them. Oh, I'm so sorry, Lorena. I'm really not having much luck with this touch screen. Let me try to move it the other way. Oh, you just got me upside down. See if I can just see your question. Oh, it's so frustrating, technology. Sorry, Lorena, I can't seem to open that one. I'm going to try Roxana's question and then I'll see if I can come back. Roxana, you've asked, is it possible to turn the leading twin in a Dcda pregnancy from breech to head down before going into labour or during labour? So we wouldn't do any turning in labour, and I don't think they turn twins. The space is too compact, and I don't think that's going to be an option. Best people to ask are your is your obstetrician. It'll be Miss Rimpey or Mrs. Black, but I think it's unlikely that they would turn the first twin. I can't see the rest of the question. I can only go for the first part because that's all it's letting me see of any of them. So if there is another part to your question, please do repost them. Maya, you said you're 33 weeks pregnant, first baby, you're having a low risk pregnancy, and you're still deciding between the JR, which is 30 to 40 minutes away, and that's an H, so I presume it's either home or the Horton. Mia, I'm afraid I can't see the rest of your question either, but if you're not sure, please talk to your midwife about it. We've also done some films which are on our Oxford University Hospital's website in places of birth. We've done a film on home birth, and we've also done a film on midwifery-led units, which may give you more information as well. So it may be worth looking at those, and of course ask your midwife, and she'll be able to give you, have a discussion, the pros and cons of both and what works better for you. Generally, having your first baby, you've got plenty of time to travel to wherever you want to have your baby, but it's about making the best plans for you. So Cheryl, you're 40 plus 6 weeks, and you also feel your midwife appointments have been rushed, and your next appointment with your midwife isn't until Thursday. Cheryl, equally along with everyone else, my touch screen is not working. I'm sorry that your appointments have been rushed. I think if you have any particular questions that you want to ask, if you could message the Maternity Voices Partnership, I can get a midwife to get in contact with you and answer the questions that you may have. and give you that support that I'm sorry you haven't had. And as that's a few people that have fed back to me about the midwife appointments seeming rushed, I will feed that back to the community matron as well, so that she can have a chat with her teams about it. Imi, you're asking, are partners still wearing masks whilst we are in labour? Yes, Imi, everybody has to wear masks in the hospital when they come, when we can't have social distancing. So I'm afraid they will still have to wear masks. Lorraine, you said your previous pregnancy was born at 32 weeks, and you're asking, are you likely to have another baby born at that gestation? Lorraine, I think it's very difficult to comment when I don't know your history. I presume that you've been seen in our preterm birth clinic, they will be able to advise you. Some people have babies at that gestation because there was an infection and it caused it to happen, and it's not something that would necessarily repeat again. Other people have a problem with their cervix, which means that it starts to open earlier than it should do. So there's many different reasons why it happens, but we will do everything, knowing that you've had a baby born earlier before, we will do everything we can to try and get you further along in your pregnancy this time round. Isabel, you went for a private scan and the sonographer mentioned that you had a tilted uterus, but there's been no mention of that at the scans at the John Radcliffe Hospital. It doesn't always have a relevance to your pregnancy, Isabel, so it's not something that we would comment on. I'm sorry, again, I can't see the rest of your question because my touch screen is not working. But if there is anything else, we tend to just report on things that we feel are relevant to the pregnancy, which is probably why it's not been commented on before. Julia, you said, do you have a phone, computer, so you can read comments in full on there? I do. I just didn't want to interrupt the filming, but I could do that. We're getting towards the end of the session now. I think we just have to plan to use the computer next time instead of the iPad. Shannon, you're 36 weeks today. You had your scan and your baby boy weighs 6.5 pounds. Any idea on how much weight he could put on from now until he's born? So Shannon, I think every baby is different, but it generally follows a curve. If you have a look inside your hospital notes at the scan pictures, which is in the red section on fetal wellbeing, you will see that there is a curve, and you'll see in terms of weeks and measurement. So you'll be able to look that up yourself depending on when the baby's born. So it will give you an idea at 38 weeks how much baby will weigh. You just follow the line across. So it'll be a box and there'll be one with EFW, which is estimated fetal weight, and you'll see the lines going across. So just follow up from the bottom to the weeks, across on the line that baby's been grown on, and across to the weight of the baby, and you'll be able to get an idea for yourself. So Stephanie, you're 35 weeks having your first baby, and your next midwife appointment is at 38 weeks. Shouldn't you be seeing her at 36 weeks also? Stephanie, I think that is part of your pathway, that you're meant to see her at 36 weeks. And you certainly have your scan at 36 weeks. So I would get in touch with your community midwife. If you're not sure, on our website again, or on the Facebook page, there is a guide that shows you what appointments you should be getting as part of our changes that we've made due to COVID. Imi, you've asked, can your partner take a mask off for a picture of you as a family? Of course, in terms of after the baby's born, the midwife will give you time alone with the baby, and of course take pictures yeah, it's just obviously if the midwife is in the room with you, then you have to wear your mask. When the midwife is out of the room, obviously your mask can come off for a breather. And obviously you have to release your mask to be able to drink and keep hydrated as well. Laura, you've said midwife appointments are now 39 weeks and 41 weeks. Do midwives do a stretch and sweep at 39 weeks or only once you're overdue? So Laura, we generally just do them at 41 weeks now. But should you want to have one earlier and your midwife has capacity to be able to do it, then you could ask for it to be done. But they are uncomfortable and not always necessary, so some people don't always want to have one. So Molly, if you have one visitor for 1 hour a day, if you stay in, what's the difference of a visitor to partner attending the scan? So Molly, if we do 100 scans a day, that's 100 people coming in through the hospital. The amount of people that stay in hospital for more than 1 day, where a visitor would be required in the hospital, is probably not even 1 a day, or maybe 1 a day. So it is a difference of 99 more people coming through compared to the one person who comes in to visit. So it does make a significant difference. I am sorry, I know this is a really contentious issue for people, but it is something that we won't be changing in the short term. So Cheryl, you're asking, when is an induction in the GR likely booked? If you have one, will I be by myself until I'm then in established labour? So an induction is generally booked for most low-risk women when you are 42 weeks pregnant. Sometimes it's a little bit earlier, it may be 2 or 3 days before that, but generally it's in that 41 week, at some point in 41 to 42 weeks that it's done. Like I said earlier, you'd come in the day before to either have the catheter or have a stretch and sweep, which would be in for roughly about an hour before you could go home, or if you have to stay in the ward, you'd then stay in the ward afterwards. And then your partner comes in at the point when you either go to the spires or go to the delivery suite, depending on what is the next stage of your induction process. And that's when your partner stays with you. So Louise, you're coming in for the balloon induction on Friday. You have gestational diabetes. Will you be able to walk around once it's in? Yes, Louise, it is a small catheter that is stuck to your leg afterwards for you to walk about with, and yes, you'll be fully mobile with it in, and it will come out when it's ready, or we will help it to come out. So Stephanie, you've asked, can partners be on the 36-week scans now? No, I'm really sorry, Stephanie, there are still no partners present for any of our scans. So those who have had relatives who've said that they can have partners present, that's in the old leaflet and is not the current advice. So the more information is in the appointments, and you tend to be phoned the day or two before your appointment to again reiterate that partners can't be present for scans. Caris, you've asked, will we also be asked to wear a mask when giving birth? No, Caris, you won't be asked to wear a mask when giving birth. It's not ideal at all, so no, you won't be asked. Laura, you're asking about the rules regarding home birth and your other child. Laura, we just ask you to have somebody that is responsible for the other child, and whether that's your partner and they go between you and the other child, or whether your child is picked up by somebody else and taken away. But we just need to make sure that you have childcare. There are a small percentage of women that have to transfer into hospital from a home birth, and we need to make sure that you have childcare at that point, and we aren't waiting for childcare to arrive. So that's the main thing, is just making sure that they have a carer that is responsible for them. Again, I'm sorry, Sophie. again, questions about scan, but sorry, no partners for any of the scans. And I think that's the end of our questions for today. So hopefully I've managed to clear up some questions about scans. We've been running the Ask the Midwife phone line for a few months now, 7 days a week with a community midwife at the end of the phone. But unfortunately, it hasn't been as popular as we thought it would be. So we're going to stop that as of today. So we will try to have somebody available every Monday at 2:30 to answer any questions and things that you may have. And obviously in the interim, if you feel that you have more pressing questions, then please do ask your community midwives. Otherwise, or anything that you want to message via the Maternity Voices Facebook page. But again, remember, they are just volunteers and they can't man the site all the time. So do think most questions your community midwife can answer. But otherwise, we will try to, if it's not myself, it will be one of my colleagues, and we'll be here every Monday at 2:30 to answer some of your questions. So thank you very much. I'm sorry for the problem with the iPad today. I will not use it next time. We'll go back to using a computer so that we can see your questions. So take care and stay safe.